Alright, well, I just finished the shift video, so I'm gonna go straight into the stays video. This week I'm gonna be making a pair of stays. This time I'm gonna be using RedThreaded's Regency short stays pattern. I've used a couple of their patterns before. I used one of their corset patterns for my Hannah Alexander Alice cosplay, and then I also used a pattern for their stays for my witch costume. I've also got another one of their stays in the works, but I haven't finished it yet, so we'll get there eventually. But this is not only a part of my Bridgerton series, but it's also part of my trying out lots of different corset patterns, corsets, stays, you know, various undergarments patterns. So far, I've had a pretty good experience with them. The only one of their patterns that I didn't love was the 1860s corset pattern. I don't think that it was graded properly. Seams weren't quite matching up and I had to do a lot of fussing. I also did heavily alter that pattern personally because of the style that I wanted to achieve. I was copying an extant corset and used their tutorial for altering their pattern to match that corset, and it just didn't work out quite as well as they had said it would, but I got it to work eventually. I loved their stays patterns though, so I'm really hopeful that this will also be good. Thank you. I also think that stays need to be a little bit less precise than corsets do. So I find them a little bit easier to fit because I'm more going with whatever the shape of my body is rather than really trying to achieve a specific silhouette from that time period. I know that Victorian corsets, you're all supposed to fit them to your body, but I feel like the Victorian silhouette is so iconic that it's easier to make it look wrong, whereas with stays, it's easier to get it to look right because it's more versatile. I don't know where I was going with that rant. Anyways, a little bit of information on stays. I'm not going to go super in depth on this one because if you are interested in Bridgerton at all, you've probably seen all of the like inaccuracies about corsets and stays kind of thing. So short stays are more of what we think of like a bra rather than what we think of as a corset. They only go to just under the bust and they, I don't know, they basically function like a bra where they like hoist your boobs up rather than I guess a corset also does that, but stays generally don't do that much for reduction in your waist. They're more for giving a foundation for the dress than for shaping your body in any way. Regency period is a pretty short period. It's like 1810s to 1830s ish, so these stays are only popular for a really short amount of time. Before that we get more of what we think of as stays, which is more of what my witch stays looked like, and then after that we get more of the Victorian style corset. So these are popular for a really short amount of time, but because Bridgerton is so popular, we're gonna be making them anyways. Bridgerton does some stuff with stays that may or may not be accurate. One of the big things that I saw as soon as Bridgerton was released, that everybody was very frustrated that they weren't wearing shifts underneath and that she had like visible sores from wearing her stays, and you know, that is not quite accurate. They also have the really standard tight lacing scene. There's no tight lacing in stays. It's really just there to raise your bust line and it's not trying to compress your waist at all. So those were kind of the qualms that I saw about Bridgerton going into this. Recently I think there was some article saying that shifts may not have always been worn, but I didn't actually read it, I just saw a headline, so you know. The Regency time period also comes at the same time as the Empire time period that's named for Napoleon's empire, and that's also where the Empire waistlines come in. So the Regency stays really are there to help make that Empire silhouette. It raises the bust line up so that you can then kind of raise the waistline of your dress right to under your bust. So that is where we get a name for that silhouette. So the Regency and the Empire period are pretty intertwined as far as clothing goes. That's about all I've got on Regency stays for now. Maybe later I'll do something a little bit more historical or like Jane Austen-esque, but because Bridgerton is kind of a fantasy historical thing and not really historical, I have chosen not to go so much into the history on this project and really lean into like the fun prints and the fantasy-ness of the whole thing. So on that note, let's get started. The stays are from RedThreaded. They're RedThreaded's Regency short stays, and they're super cute. I am really excited to try this pattern actually. I have been wanting to make some Regency short stays since the first season of Bridgerton came out, so it only took me a year, but I'm very excited to try this out. So let's get these on. So for my stays, the lacing panels are very, very long because I'm just reusing stuff, but it should be fine. Okay, so I don't have any boning in here besides the very back, but I feel like maybe it's too small. I don't know, like it seems to fit okay, but it feels like the back should be higher. Maybe it'll be more secure once I like have an actual eyelet in there, but right now because it is just safety pinned in there, it's not very secure. Well, it's definitely doing the like Regency heave. I don't know, maybe it does fit. It seems like also it's pretty low cut, but maybe that's correct. Yeah, I guess that's about correct because like the apex of my bust is like right here. So it does cover it by just a little bit, and like it's really cute. Like even if maybe it's a little small, it's very cute. So I'm not too concerned actually. I think maybe once there's actual boning and everything, it'll help also, especially if I put some bones in the center front. Mostly, so I want to also use this pattern for just like a dress. If you've seen the brand Kitteny, they have some really cute like undergarment inspired like modern lingerie, so I thought that this would make a cute dress. Though if I use it for an actual dress, I'm gonna have to definitely raise the bust about an inch, but that'll be down the line. I think also I just need to like kind of get used to this not sitting at the waist. So like my natural waist is like way down here. Obviously the Regency stays don't sit at your natural waist, or I guess the long ones might, but like the short stays are supposed to stop a little bit above. I think it looks pretty good, so I'm not going to fuss with anything. I think if anything the straps could be longer, but I'm not gonna cut new straps. I think the cups fit pretty well. They are like where I would imagine an underwire would go. It is getting like all of the root of my breast tissue like in there, so that's good. Yeah, this fits better than most bras that I own, so that's nice. And it does seem to be like holding everything in, so, like nothing seems to be really spilling over. Like I'm not getting much quad boob. There's like a little bit where it hits the top of the shift that it's getting a little bit of creasing, but that might be more the shift than the stays. Actually, once I pull the shift out there a little bit, yeah, it is the shift that was cutting in right there. I really don't think I need to make many alterations to this. I think I might raise this. Hold on, I've got this basted down, so let me just snap that basting and see what it looks like just on one side. That seems to hold, I don't know. I like, part of me likes how low this is, and part of me is like, no, there needs to be more here. But yeah, I think that looks good. So I think rather than having it way down here where the actual like drawn seam line is, I'm gonna raise it literally just 1/4 of an inch. So it's not gonna be too much. It's just gonna be a little tiny bit more coverage so that I don't potentially spill out of there. Hello. Hi there. Do you wanna say hi? Okay, down you go. Yeah, so I think that's a success. This is the shift poking out, so ignore that. But I think if I just tuck that, like raise it 1/4 inch, then that's good, and we're all good. So hooray, I think that this is a success. I don't think I need to make many alterations besides that. It seems to fit my bust really well. I think also not having these giant things hanging off might help, but yeah, I think that generally this looks pretty good. I guess it's a little bit lower in the back than it is at the front. Maybe, hold on. It looks that way in the mirror. Let me see if it looks that way on camera. Is it just my bad posture? Let's try to stand up straight. It is a little bit lower in the back, so I could maybe raise that, but I think I will just leave it because I think that's happening more because it's not going high enough, like my issue with the straps. I think that, so if I have the actual eyelets in and a sturdy lace that isn't just slipping apart like this ribbon, this is like old Christmas ribbon, so it will lift that side up or the back up a little bit, and it's not perfect, but I think it's definitely better than when I just leave it. I'm also a little bit swayed back, so that is a me problem as well. Because this is not sitting at the narrowest part of the waist, like the narrowest part of my waist is multiple inches below. If you put too much pressure on this, it is gonna wanna just slip down. And that's like, I don't know, that's just kind of how if you wear a strapless bra, you've probably noticed that before. Like your strapless bra always wants to fall down to the narrowest part of your waist because that's how things work. There's pressure, and if it's tight, it's gonna want to go to where it has the least amount of resistance. So I think it's just a fundamental flaw of like short stays and strapless bras, that kind of thing. So you do need some kind of support on your shoulders, just as tension to keep it up rather than gravity affecting it. That's it. Okay, I think that this fitting is done. The only change I'm going to be making is lifting the front neckline a little bit by 1/4 inch, and we're good. Okay, it is quite damp. It's rainy outside, but I wanted to get this reveal done, so here we are. We're doing it. Yeah, I think overall the stays turned out really well. I'm so happy with the how the fabric looks in these stays. I was a little concerned that it would look, I don't know, too modern or quilty, I guess, but I think the fabric choice turned out really cute, so I'm happy with that. I also was concerned about the ribbon binding being too white against the stays color because it's more of a like ivory off-white, but I think that it turned out just fine and it looks good with the white, so yay, all around good. I think the only concern I have is that it seems to be maybe a little bit small in the bust, and I'm not sure if it's just actually that it's too small in the bust or if it's because I pulled the binding a little bit too tight. If it's that I pulled the binding a little bit too tight, that will relax over time. Like the whole point of the ribbon binding is that it doesn't stretch out very much, but it's fabric, so, or ribbon, I don't know, it's still like fabric, so it will have some give over time. Like just as I wear it more, it will give a little bit and loosen up a little. So I think it's okay that it's a little tight. It's not like quad boobing me at all, so that's good. It doesn't seem to be causing that issue. Yeah, I think maybe the straps are a little bit short, but I think maybe I'm used to the other type of stays where there's like a little bump and then like that shortens the distance. Maybe in the future I would lengthen the strap on this pattern, but it's not too bad, and if I just get a longer ribbon, it's not going to be a problem. Though the strap is holding this up a little bit. So because I mentioned in the fitting, because this is not like a full stay where it goes all the way through the waist, it's wanting to drop down to a narrower part of my torso. So like my rib cage is obviously not the narrowest part of my torso, my waist is. So because there's so much force pressing in, it's wanting to slide down. The straps obviously are helping all of that stay up, so it doesn't do that, so it's keeping all the compression in the correct place. But I don't know, you know how like bras, you're supposed to figure out what fits you based on your chest and if it keeps your chest up without the straps. Kind of like that idea, except that there's really no way for anything to stay up there because gravity will always win eventually, because it will want to come down to the narrowest part. I think as far as any other things where like I would want to change anything, I don't think that there is much. I think that everything looks really good. Like maybe the straps are placed a little bit wide, but I don't think it's that much of a problem. I think it's fine that it's wide, because then when I eventually make the gown and I want to like make sure the stays aren't showing, having wide straps will be a good thing. So it's not a problem. It's not like they're so wide that they're falling off my shoulders at all, so it's totally cool. Overall, I really like this pattern. I had to do a tiny bit of truing to the pattern because the back piece and the side piece, the bottom edge of the hem like didn't quite match up, so I had to true that myself. That seems to maybe be a problem with her patterns. This is RedThreaded's short stays pattern, and I had that problem with another one of her patterns where it wasn't trued properly. So truing when it comes to pattern making is just making sure that all of the stitching lines will match up together once you actually like stitch them all together. So like there's no overhang on any one piece. It seems like whatever method she's using for grading her patterns, it's not ending up with really precise truing of the pattern. So something to keep in mind, and like it's not a huge deal because the stays you end up cutting them to match anyways, so that you like even everything out. You want to make sure each side matches, so like that stuff does get worked out, but it is better to start with a pattern that is correct rather than having to fix it as you are going through the process, I guess. So that's my only qualm with her pattern. Other than that, it fits really well. It's true to size as far as I picked what her recommended pattern size was for me on her Etsy store, and it fits, so great. I didn't have to change the sizing at all. Maybe there's a little bit of issue with the bust being a little bit small. I think that it's a really good pattern. It's a really good beginner pattern, I think. It's good practice for doing gores. So like if you've never done a gored corset before, or if you've never done gores in a garment, this would be a really good place to start because they're really teeny tiny. There's only 4 of them, and it's a pretty fast project because there's only a few seams. Like the gores are really the most complicated part of this, whereas if you saw my corset for Alice in Wonderland, the gores were just like one little part of it, and then the whole corset was also like a big ordeal to get it together. So This one I think is a lot simpler because you're not fitting through the waist. There's also that you don't have to deal with. You don't have to fit through the hips. It's really just your bust and your under bust measurement, and then there's only 2 seams outside of these gores. So I think this is a really good beginner pattern. If you are looking for something to start your corset journey, this I think it'd be a really good start. Cool. I think that's pretty much it. Next video is the petticoat, so keep an eye out for that. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, if you've tried this pattern and you like it or you didn't like it, let me know why or why not you liked it. I'm very curious what other people's experiences with her patterns are, because it seems like there's a lot of pictures of people using her patterns, but I don't really see much feedback of it. So I'm very curious what other people think of the red threaded patterns. And then if you have any other corset patterns that you'd like me to try, this is not only part of the Bridgerton series, this is part of me trying lots of corset patterns out. Let me know, drop them in the comments, and I will get to them eventually. And if you want to see the rest of the costume and the rest of the things that I work on, then please subscribe. Okay, I hope to see you guys in the next video. Okay, bye.